welcome to In Conversation, and I have with me today as my guest, Dr. Mark Prince. Mark, welcome to the program today. Thank you for coming.
Welcome.
Mark, your name in the media today may be associated with the death of your son, Kiyan, who died fatally with a single stab wound.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, your life has changed in many respects. But before we come to that, tell us a little bit about you. Who was Mark Prince, as a teenager growing up? What kind of life did you live?
Interesting teenager. I used to be one of those teenagers that used to think about my life from when I was young. Think about, why am I here? And I used to think about, even go right back to just biology and as a sperm, and then why this? Why did I end up in this country? Why here? There was lots of whys, and I always wanted to know a bit about sort of like me and what my purpose is on this earth. I was a very strong-willed, minded young man. I knew what I wanted. I loved to be winning all the time in whatever I was involved in. I like to come first. I like to be the best in it. So I remember crying when I, was in the team games, and it wasn't just down to me. It was down to everybody else's efforts. Yeah. And if they didn't put in as much effort as me and we lost, I'll be hurt. Yeah. I remember crying at sometimes because it was hard to handle, hard to swallow a loss. I used to fight a lot. I used to get into a lot of fights. But I think that was based on me being beaten at home a lot. And my dad being he hadn't dealt with his issues of him being beaten. His cycle continued. And my dad's one was pretty aggressive, to say the least, being beaten to the point where he gets sent in a river to soak off his skin. Yeah. And that river was quite dangerous. It had dangerous animals in there coming from Guyana. You got snakes and a lot of swamp and Amazon. And so, my dad come up tough, and I can imagine how that really affected him, and him being a dad himself and having his children and then not having his dad around. So once you don't break that cycle or know how to begin to even address it, then it's going to have an impact on you having your boys and your daughter, because there was four of us. And growing up with us in the house was quite fearful. That's my way of putting home life. You never knew what you were going to get. Dad was great. I idolized him, looked up to him, wanted to be like him. Was proud that people would say, "You look like your dad." People talk about him because he was a former fighter from Guyana, come over to England. So, I was really proud to have my dad as my dad. But as you grow and you're getting beaten, and it's quite vicious, where your skin's getting torn and, it gets damaged as you grow, your mindset starts changing. It actually starts having that effect on you, and until you want to escape that. You want to get away. So as a teenager, I was quite troubled in terms of how I was dealing with things at home and what was happening to me. So I'd come out into my school life and my teenage life, and I'd be aggressive. And I'd sort of not want to have anyone else apart from my dad at home beating me. I was going to be the aggressor and not be beaten by anyone else. So I think that came out.
Right. So you can almost see a kind of repeat, for you as a teenager, of a cycle then of expressing your anger, what it is, in a physical way.
I was very angry.
Yeah.
I remember being very, very, very angry. I remember walking from home to school, just cussing and swearing I'm going to kill this man, all the way to school, just to try.
Your father you're talking about?
Yeah, just to try and release you know, some of the anger that was in me, because a lot of it was uncalled for. I didn't see.
But you mentioned the anger towards your father with being disciplined in a hard way. But you also say you had respect for him and you were happy that you looked like him.
Yeah.
So how does that work with you?
Well, it works up to a point where your age, you start growing into a young man, and then that begins to change. You know, you're not this little kid anymore. And your own ideas start building about life and yourself. And, you know, you're going through puberty, you're going through changes anyway. So they're quite difficult times as well in your life. And then having someone who's supposed to be looking out for you, advising you, nurturing you, and showing you that male figure and how you're supposed to function as a young man, and he's hurting you, threatening you, you're scared of him, that has a huge effect on your life.
So you mentioned that when you were a teenager, you were kind of thinking where you're going. You seem to be planning your future from a young age. So
well, it was more in investigating. There was more questions. I didn't have answers.
Right.
I had a lot of questions, and I think that showed a little bit about me, because at that age, to be thinking deeply about what I was doing here and why here, why this house, why is he my dad? I could have been a sperm for anyone else, coming from anyone else, you know. So it was like, why here and why this time and stuff like that. But, you know, you realize over time that everything is for a reason. Sure. You know, there's purpose in everything God does. There's no accidents. There's no child, even if it's a child that has come from abuse or rape, even that's not an accident. Your life, and God has a purpose for that life. So it's a hard one to swallow.
It is when you're going through it. I suppose when you look back, you can come to those conclusions.
That's
but
right.
When you're journeying through it, it might be difficult. But you know, when you obviously your parents came, your father, you came to this country then from Guyana.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So what was life for you like transitioning from Guyana to England? For you?
What was it like for my dad?
For you?
For me, I didn't. I was born here.
Okay, so you were born here.
I got to be born here. My dad transitioned, and that was tough for him.
Yeah.
One, the cold weather broke him down. I remember him talking about the cold weather. I remember him talking about mods, skinheads, and just the level of racism and how they had to defend themselves. And you know, his brother was over here as well, and they'd kind of be together and defend each other. And
So when did you start to begin to see where your skills, what you liked doing, began to formulate and take shape?
I never knew what my purpose was for a long time. So I ran away from home at 15, 16 years old to get away from what was going on at home. And obviously you jump from the frying pan into the fire. You know, it was a tough time, you know, but it was a different fear I was facing. There were new fears. There was fears of, you know, safety on the streets, because there was times when I was out on the street.
So how long were you away from home?
I didn't go back.
So you left home at 15?
Yeah, I didn't go back.
So you just fended for yourself at 15?
Yeah. It was scary times.
So you left school and everything?
Yep, didn't want to sleep. I kept going into school because it was like that part where school was just finishing. School was just coming to an end. So it was just about timing, really.
So where did you stay?
Some nights, if I didn't have anywhere, I'd walk up and down on the street because I was too scared to, you know, maybe be on a bench or in a corner or whatever. You heard loads of stories about, you know, kids getting abused and things happening to them. So, but most of the time, I always found somewhere. God bless me, and someone would let me sleep on their settee or
so from 15, I mean, you definitely was in the fire. You basically just became independent living. I mean,
definitely.
That
I
sounds
didn't
like
know
a very
where the next meal was coming from. I had some really good people, like the Christian's family. It's funny their name was Christian as well. Right. You know, Mark Christian, Jackie Christian, Howard. They were wonderful.
So they just took you in.
Then. God sent a lot of support, because there'll be times when if I couldn't be in there in the house, then to be protected from the element, I remember sleeping in Mark's car sometimes. And it was absolutely freezing. I remember my knees just felt like they were frozen up because I couldn't stretch my legs out.
Yeah.
So it was so painful in the morning. It was a terrible night, so because it's too cold.
I mean, those experiences like that, I mean, you're still a teenager.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of think as a parent, you know, you wouldn't want any child to go through that, but you must have, obviously, that frying pan must have been very hot for you to jump out of that fire.
Yeah, I was tired of coming home and my dad just, you don't know what's going to happen, to turn on you, you think you're a big man and threaten you, and, you know, you grew up thinking this guy was like the Hulk, just no one could. I thought about stabbing him sometimes when I was little. I remember there was an incident I was cutting it's in my book, The Prince of Peace. You know, so people really want to know about some of the stuff that I've gone through. Get that book, man. It's I just open my heart in that book, and there's times when you actually think, if I stab him, and you actually start picturing it, what will happen, and you think, my dad's so tough, he ain't even gonna die, he'll probably kill me still. So I remember one time I was thinking about it, and I turned around, and he was turning around looking at me, and it was like I knew he was thinking about that, I was thinking about that.
Right.
It was an amazing moment, like not amazing in good, but just like, you know, it was a crazy moment, man. To do this and then see him doing this, it was like, oh,
he was
man.
reading your mind.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But
what was he going through to think that I would think like that?
He probably.
So he knows the effect, he must know the effect he's having on me, or what he's doing is going to make me have those thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, unless my dad just, you know.
Maybe he's been through it himself, so he knew what to look for.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But it was tough times. Had to get out of there.
But you mentioned your father in Guyana did boxing.
Yeah,
and
boxing.
As much as you wanted to get away from him, your father, and to be disassociated with him, somehow you found yourself doing the same thing as him.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how you got into boxing.
Well, Dad's thing was to make sure that we looked after ourselves. Yeah. So when we was 8, obviously my dad was still going training, even though he'd stopped boxing, he'd still go training and look after him. So he said, you know, put your clothes on and follow me. So that's what you done. You put your clothes on and he would start running. He'd say, do everything I do. So if he started shadow boxing, you shadow box. If you ran, you ran. And my dad ran. And he ran and he ran and he ran. And you just, my thing in my head was, don't stop. You know, the guy said, follow him, so don't stop. So I weren't stopping. So from a young age, I was building this mindset, even when I was tired and I wanted to stop, I wasn't stopping. My goal was to follow him. And
so at what point did you realize that you were good at boxing to the point that you really became a champion?
I didn't, you know. I used to really kick ass at school when it came to fights. And I got into fights a lot. And I remember enjoying getting into fights and having this reputation of being the hard guy and being able to beat up guys 3 years above me in the year group. So like now it'll be like a year 7 beating up a year 10. And that's what I was doing. But I had learned certain skills and I was determined. So I weren't deterred by size or age. You know, if I got upset, and that would be very easily, I could get upset, then I would explode, and I'd always use fighting and my fist as a way of communicating how I felt.
But you got into boxing.
I got into boxing, and that was late. I never ever dreamt I'd be a boxer. It wasn't in my mind. My dad didn't talk about he's training me to be a boxer. My dad trained us so we could look after ourselves. So we could. My brother could, I could, and we were known. You know, our name was known, the Prince brothers. We were known for fighting.
But
so, you know, 21 years old it took for me to get to that moment that I decided I'm going to get into boxing. But it's strange because I spent a whole night before taking drugs. They call it stones, rocks, whatever. I just cracked cocaine with my friends, and then I woke up and it was like, I had a moment to look at myself and my life. And I remember my dad saying, you can't make it out there, you're not going to make it. And then I had that moment of thinking, like, what, is this what you planned for your life? Like I was doing crime, getting into crime. I'd done things to make money and I thought, saying the way forward, selling drugs. I had 2 kids at the time, Tanisha and Kiyan. And I thought to myself, this isn't what I want for my life. This isn't what I had planned. I remember being a little kid, practicing my autograph, feeling that, I didn't know where that came from, just feeling that I was going to be someone and people would want to know me and I'd be signing autographs. And so I thought, let me start practicing from now. And I said, write it in my books and stuff. And I thought about those moments at that time because I woke up and wasted a whole day. I slept through a day and woke up in the night again after spending a night taking drugs. And I thought, nah, I'm going to do something about this. And my dad used to always say, years later, you know, we'd spoke again. He used to say, why don't you come down the house and come training with me? And I just thought, I ain't doing nothing with you, you know what I'm saying? Them days are over. But then I thought, let me take him up on his offer. I wanna do something. Let me take him up. So I went, talked to him. He said, yeah, he was happy. So I used to start going from Tottenham, where I was living now, go to Wood Green, knock him up, and he'd put on his boots, his stuff that he used to wear when he used to go running, just come down Ali Pali with me. There's the hills, and it's a good spot for running. And I started changing my life. It took 9 months for me to start controlling the addictions of just smoking weed. I got rid of all the other habits, taking acid tabs and cocaine and all that. I dropped those. You know, despite people say they're highly addictive, I dropped them. And just took my time to kind of wean off weed smoking and just began doing a regular routine. It was routine that I developed when I didn't really have a routine apart from, you know, doing criminal acts. You know, you set the move up, you got to do it at this time, whatnot. I had no routine in my life, so boxing gave me that. Boxing gave me a way of planning and having a vision and goals. And these are the kind of things that began to change my life. It didn't work out with my dad. Probably done good for the first 6 months. And then after, my dad, he hadn't really changed much. But I was very grateful for him that he started me going on it, you know, cracking raw eggs and had to drink them like in the Rocky films. It was nuts, but that's how it began when I went training back with my dad. So I'm always grateful for him. He was one of my biggest supporters.
Eventually, as you said, he got older, you began to see him in a different way. It's to kind of guide you into
No, that came in time because that didn't come until I actually began to talk to God and renew my walk with God again.
Tell us about that. How did that
Yeah, because coming from school, you growing up in the church from 8 years old to when I left, I got baptized at 13. I had goosebumps. It was at a tent meeting and it was like I wanted to know this God. I wanted this God in my life, you know, this Jesus who would die for me. And it just resonated with me at 13. I don't know what happened. I remember thinking, wow, I had these goosebumps. I want to get baptized. I want to give my life to God. I want him to use me. And that was, you know, I used to sing and people used to say, God's going to do amazing things with you in your life. And I thought, yeah, and I was really excited. But all the other stuff just took me away from all of that. So it was like kind of 2 different lives, and then one just faded off into the distance. Those memories of people at church telling me God's going to use me. Now I was just smoking and living this different life. So it kind of faded away, but it's always in you. Bring up a child in a way, they'll go and they'll come back to it. So, you know, after my career began, I think God used boxing to clean me up because as I began to focus and move forward in life, God had his plan for me. And at 27, after having an awesome time, just breaking every barrier that was in front of me, that you couldn't win this title, you couldn't do this because you're unknown in boxing, you've started too late, you can't make it. After proving that you can, and that every time someone says you can't, if you get your mind to it and work hard, you can. After building myself up and I became #1 in Britain, it came to a point in my life that I realized that I weren't fulfilled. I thought all the things that this was going to bring me was going to make me happy. And I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy. I could sign autographs of people that'd wait for me at weigh-ins and just to take a picture, and I'd get fan mail, and, life was different for me now, but I wasn't fulfilled. There was something missing. So I just began to have a conversation with God and just talk to him, because I just remembered that, you know what, there's God, man. And when I began that conversation, I said, I want to get to know you again. I want to be able to talk with you again. And so I began going to the park. I began picking up my Bible and just reading, asking God to help me to understand what I'm reading, not to have the mindset of what I'd learned from church, but to get to know him personally. I remember asking him, like, I've done all the church stuff. I want to get to know you, so we have a relationship. And then I began to change. I began to feel this love in my heart. I began to feel an appreciation for things around me. I began to look at the nature and just see things, colours and flowers. It was like I was getting soft, and I was changing. Looking at flowers, saying, "Wow, look at those colours. Look how amazing God is to be." And I never used to think like that. And I used to look at all the grass and the different shades. I'm thinking, God is amazing. So that's how my relationship started building. I was looking forward to going somewhere quiet and sitting down with God, reading my Bible, talking, or just sitting down in nature and just looking around at God's awesome goodness and what He's made. And my relationship started to build, and I was reading lots of different books, going to libraries where you'd get a lot of spiritual books and reading up on everything. And I think I began to change my mindset. And I think they got worried in boxing. I remember Frank Warren was my manager. Okay. And I'm sure he was a bit worried because I heard that his view, I don't know if it was true, but I heard his view was that when fighters start changing and again, they're not as aggressive and cold-hearted and as they normally would be. And I remember thinking, people saying, "Oh, you can't box now." People at church would say, "Oh, you can't box, how do you?" And that became like the main issue, boxing and being with God. And like, I just used to say to God, I don't know what you want. If I wasn't supposed to be boxing, I wouldn't be boxing. I'm boxing right now, so you've given me the victories. You've blessed me in this game. So if I'm not supposed to be boxing, then you take me out of the game. And then funny enough, I was out of the game. Okay. I was out of the game. I had an accident. My knee popped in how many different places. And then I went through a time of depression and just being in the house. Remember, I was training 3-4 times a day, every day. And, people want to see you and meet you, and you're invited to open shops and businesses and all sorts of places. And now you're just sitting at home with a brace from here all the way down to your ankle, and you can't move, looking at magazines of your trade and your sport, and you see your name just getting lower and lower as #1, number 10, just going until you're out of the picture. So that was my significance, and I think God was trying to show me something. Wow. That I'm your significance. Okay. Yeah, it's not boxing. It's not people coming to you for anything or knowing you for knocking people out or being how you are. It's found in me. And so I think God was taking me right down and building me up now. He was like, okay, you want me in your life? You want me to use you? He was answering my prayers, basically, but I just didn't like the way he was answering it. So I would get upset. I'd get upset about that, and which most people do, and then I don't want to talk to God. And then it would impact my relationship. But you grow and you mature along the route. So as I look back, that's just a part of me growing. But God knew that my love for him, like David, it was about God. I'm not really gonna do anything in my life unless you are running the show. And it got to the point where it was like a tiff with someone you're in love with, like, I'm sorry, like, you know, you know, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have said that, you know, help me to just grow and think right and be right. So you have to go through these things, and all these experiences were helping me. You know, I lost my baby when I was married. It was a stillbirth. You know, all these things were testing, carrying a little coffin and burying your baby. You know, these things are really, really tough. But what was happening, God was building me, and then the accident made me just financially be on the ground. And I had nothing. You know, I was going to lose my house, and people was coming to take my house. They was actually around my house to take my home. They came around. And they were
bailiffs came?
Yeah, take your stuff out. I had solicitors. They came as a team, like, you know, you have to move out today. And I'm like, where's my kids gonna go? Where's everyone gonna go? Like, you know, this is what we do. We're contract to do this. You have to leave. It was 2 officials, locksmiths, the whole nines, and God just showed up, man. God showed up at my door. Yeah. And when I say that, I mean, he impressed these guys. They went outside, to give me a minute to pack the stuff. I knew I can't pack all these stuff. I got a whole family's stuff in the house. And the day before I was supposed to pack, but I said to God, I'm gonna trust in you to keep, you got me this house. I got this house from boxing. So you're not gonna let me come out of this home because you hooked me up. They didn't, so they can't take it. So I went on my knees in front of my window, and they was out there, and I said, Lord, remove these guys from the house. This is your house. You gave it to me. And as stupid as it sounds, because it's at the midnight hour, isn't it? There's no time left. Yeah. The guys came back in.
You know something, Mark?
Yeah.
I'm gonna pause that right there, because we want to know what happened.
Okay.
But we're going to do a part 2.
Okay.
And we're going to hear a little bit about what happened there.
Yeah.
And then we're going to talk about what happened with your son and the foundation as well. So,
nice.
Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
For being with us so far. Praise God.
Appreciate it, bro.